A good place to start in order to understand continuous delivery as an approach is to look at the fundamental problem that it's intended to solve. So, continuous delivery is at its base a commercial methodology. So if you think about it, we're not here to write software. We're here to use software as a tool to solve a problem in the real world. And so when you're thinking about what continuous delivery can do for you potentially in your organization, it really helps to look at what the methodology is intended to solve. And that is to help you to optimize your product commercialization process. Now, not everyone will be familiar with this idea of product commercialization. And often there's a bit of a myth that perhaps what we do is we come up with an idea and then we go away and we build a product and then we sell it and make lots of money. But in reality, the best known methods for creating products are generally to start by having a very large number of ideas for potential problems that you might be able to address in a particular market. And what you really want to do is capture those ideas and then go through and evaluate and rank them to find the ones that have the most potential merit. Once you've done that, you take the best idea and go out and find a small number of customers who are actually suffering the problem that that idea addresses. And you engage with those customers and effectively run a series of experiments to test your idea in the real world to see how much merit it has. And to do that, what you need to do is do the minimal amount of development work to be able to prove or disprove your theory about this approach with real customers. Now, if you do that iteratively with a handful of customers, you're either going to find that those customers get very excited with what's happening and start offering to pay you for solving their problem, in which case you've demonstrated it's worth investing in creating a full implementation of that product. Or you'll find that actually your understanding of the market was probably not correct and that your idea doesn't really address a problem in a way that's worth paying for. At which point you should stop and move on to the next idea, start the process all over again. And this is what we mean when we say establishing product market fit. It's demonstrating that the thing you're building actually has value to real customers in the marketplace. Now, what continuous delivery is designed to do is to help you highly optimize that process. So really, continuous delivery is about this iterative loop of proposing a hypothesis about what feature might be of value to a customer or a set of customers. Then designing and developing an experiment to test that feature in the customer's environment, which then allows you to run the experiment with that customer in a production environment, capture lots of metrics, and then evaluate the results of the experiment to see if that validates your original hypothesis. You then have the option to either adjust the experiment and rerun it until you've honed in on the perfect feature, or you can move on to another experiment, or you can decide to shut down the product and move on to something different. So this means that in practice, what you're trying to do is get as efficient as possible in iterating through these experiments, but being able to do that in real world environments with real customers. So hence, continuous delivery is a process of delivering software products or software and machine learning products. In order to do this, there are some key metrics that we need to consider. So the first one is what we call deployment frequency. And this is simply a measure of how frequently you can deliver software into a production environment. And what this is telling you is, the more times you can deploy, the more opportunities you have for delivering experiments. And this sits in parallel with the second key metric, which is lead time. Now, lead time is effectively the amount of time it takes between identifying a hypothesis that you want to test and having that test operating in a production environment with your customers. Now, the significance of this is that in most real-world situations, you're only going to have a limited amount of runway in which you can do this product commercialization process. So you're going to have a fixed budget, you're going to have a fixed number of resources, and you're going to have a fixed amount of potential customer attention. And so the quicker you can get from test idea to validated test in production, the more experiments you're going to be able to run within that limited budget, and the higher the chance of identifying product market fit as a result. Now, clearly what we're talking about here is deploying minimal viable products. So we're looking at relatively simple pieces of software to test particular hypotheses, but without fully developing and maturing those at this stage. But what this means is that things can and will break, because you need to be doing this in production environments with real customers, with real data. So we must always proceed on the assumption that failure is always an option. So that brings us on to the next two key metrics. Now, the first of these is what we call time to restore. It's very important that you optimize for reducing the time between discovering that you have an issue and recovering from that issue in your production environment. So time to restore is a measure of how long it takes between identifying that there's a problem and fixing that problem in production. And what this tends to encourage is for you to organize your solution into smaller components, allowing you to take smaller bites of a problem, and decoupling those components from each other so that they can be managed and maintained rapidly and effectively, redeployed in the shortest possible amount of time should anything go wrong. Now, the second of these is change failure rate, which is simply the percentage of deployments that end up leading to problems in production environments. And this metric is useful because it's a proxy for quality. So if your change failure rate is low, you're clearly delivering software reliably and consistently. But if you're experiencing lots of issues in production, this may actually indicate that you don't have a full understanding of the actual problem that you're trying to solve, or that there are other issues upstream that need to be addressed in order to improve on this metric. Now, in the next section, we will look at how you can start to apply these ideas to work towards a continuous delivery methodology for your own organization.